So, as you may know, if you follow me, if you read my bio or anything, you know that I grew up as a military brat and that I got the privilege of living all over the world. And one of the things that I got to do was my Girl Scout troop. We were the guests of a monastery in Capri in Italy, in the country, or not the country, the city of the island of Capri in Italy. And one of the things, it's illegal there to camp. You can't camp in Capri, so don't even try. But because we were guests of the monastery, because we were able to, we were able to camp on their grounds. And so we got to spend some time, on the top of a hillside. And one of the things that we did is one of the volunteers at the monastery they invited us to their home for a meal. And so if you've ever had an Italian meal, it starts early afternoon and it could go for hours. It's all about the experience, and there's different courses. And one thing that I remember, and it was in middle school, so I was maybe 12. We walked in and there's this beautiful stone staircase. Their whole staircase was made out of rock, and it was definitely, they shined it, they buffed it, they sanded it, they made it so it was smooth. You can still see on the sides all of the depth to it though, and it was multicolored, and it was gorgeous. It was almost like a marble, but it was definitely rock. But rock has minerals and things, so it's multicolored. It was gorgeous. And years later, the staircase still is imprinted on my heart. That's the impression that it made. And it dawned on me, because this house was made on a hillside. It was on a mountain. It's very mountainous island. And I was thinking about that as I was understanding, when they built the house, they had to take that into consideration. They intentionally, and I can imagine that the stairs was probably one of the first things that they placed, because it made sense that it was there, and they were able to build the foundation based on the environment that the house was going into. It wasn't that they built the house and then they stuck it to the environment. And that's kind of how self-awareness is. A lot of times we will figure out the why. We figure out what made us angry. We figure out what made us happy. We figure out what we're good at. We do that after the fact. When we review, we look back and be like, oh, that's why I was good at that. And the thing is that may have worked in this case, but it doesn't work forever. If they didn't take into consideration that house they were building on the mountainside, if they didn't take into consideration the unstable ground, and if they didn't put the rebar in it to stabilize it, if they didn't create the stairs the way they did, if they didn't create the wall and put the foundation, and I'm not completely averse in building stick homes, but it had the pillars underneath it that held it. If they didn't take that in consideration, if they tried to put those after the fact, it would have been a lot harder. And so many times we skip this set of we'll figure out what our strengths are after we'll figure it out as we go. And there's times that we need to do it messy. We need to just start acting. But the thing is, we can understand ourselves so much better if we understand our foundation. And so today, I know last episode, I talked about kind of getting a baseline. And today I want to talk about why it's important. And I want to use this house on this hill as the metaphor, as the example, because if they built it with the wrong slope, if they wanted to go opposite of the slope that it was in, it would have been a lot more difficult to do and a lot less stable. If they would have used the wrong materials for the climate, it would have been a lot less stable. So they had to understand where they were building before they started building. And yes, we can't go back to the beginning, and we can't, but from where we are now and where we want to go, if we build the foundation, if we see our own foundation, then we can build on that, our gifts, our talents, our strengths, our motivations, our boundaries, our core values, our non-negotiables, our energy drivers. Like if we understand these first, then we can get to where we want to go and we have a lot more stability and confidence. And so with this whole idea in mind, I wanted to talk today just briefly about like how do you know if you're not seeing yourself clearly? And it's because you feel the disconnection. You feel the longing, you feel the uncertainty. You have these questions of you ask the question of who am I now? How did God wire me? Like I don't know if you do you know your zone of genius? If I asked you what is in your core, what are you good at? Do you know what it is? Because if you don't, you're missing an element, a special ingredient. Like what makes you you? The essence of you is your zone of genius, your secret sauce, your unique value proposition. If you want to get all political, like what makes you special? What makes you you? And so when you see yourself clearly, you can lean on these. And so if you're confused about the direction, you have trouble making decisions, you always wonder if this is the right way. You always wonder what if. These are evidence that you don't see yourself as clearly as you could. And you can have good self-awareness and still you're like, I know what I need, but still not know this information. So ask yourself, like, are these some of the things that you have been experiencing? Do you wonder, like, how could I have done this better? Do you trust your decisions, or afterwards you realize you're like, oh, that's not what I wanted at all? And sometimes we do. Sometimes we make decisions that we're confident and then we're like, oh, I did not know this element. We don't know it all, but we can understand there could be different things that we have as our non-negotiables, as our baseline that helps us create the decisions. And so when you do know yourself well, when you do build your house, you're on the hillside, but do it with a consideration for what you're working with, these are some of the things that can happen is it creates confidence in your unique design. Realizing that we don't have to struggle to be good at things. We don't have to struggle to lean into our strengths. It's actually a more of a restful and a energy bringing endeavor. We get clearer sense of purpose and calling. Do you ask yourself, I wonder what my purpose is? When we understand and we see how God wired us, there's things about our purpose and calling that we know to be true no matter what arena, what environment, what circumstance we're in. There's a better alignment between your faith and your work. Just like I talked about how work may be 4 letters, but it's not a 4-letter word. Our faith, like we know that our faith without works is dead. Our work that we do, we bring that faith element into it. We bring the element of our secret sauce. We bring the element of who God wired us to be and what our purpose and calling is into it. Even if you are something like a janitor or a house painter, there's elements in there that bring out your calling and your purpose. And it may not be the fact that you're painting the house. It may be the relational side. It may be the side that there's other elements. We get to look at that. Another one is more authentic expression of yourself. We crave authenticity. We go online and with AI, it's so easy to curate your life on social media, to make it look like everything is awesome, to make it look like you have it all together and that you are not sitting behind the scenes and struggling. Can I tell you the truth? We all have struggles. But, right now, actually, I have extra things on my counter that I don't typically have in my book fell. But overall, it looks like my office is clean and pristine. And if I was to turn the camera around, you can see that my office is actually kind of messy. Like I will clean it, but I have books and I have notebooks and I have sticky notes. And there is some order to it, but to the outside world, and so it's easy for me to curate this picture. We crave authenticity. When we understand who God wired us to be, how he created us and how he made us unique, then we can lean into that and we can depend on that. And then that's the authenticity that people crave from us too, because we don't need to hide it. That just comes naturally. It can exude through us if we rest into it. And so this authentic expression that you're looking for, it comes from understanding yourself. It comes from this deep awareness and understanding why we do what we do. And then the other is, this one's one of my favorite ones, is the decision-making, like our decision-making framework that we can create, because we make decisions every day. And I feel like there's more and more and more decisions to make. I mean, even to the point where as a Christian mom, like my kids want to see a movie and I have to decide with the information provided, and you can't trust the trailers. You can't trust, like, there's things that whether I'm going to let them see it before I do, if we're going to see it in the theater, we're going to see it at home, so we can have conversations around it. Like something simple. We have to make decisions about everything. We have to say yes and no so many times a day, and we get fatigued. But if you have a decision-making framework, if you have this system that you can filter decisions through, it's a whole lot easier. And this is one of the best transformations. This is one of the best byproducts of understanding yourself, is like, I can make decisions pretty quickly now. Again, not always 100% right, but I'm not 100% wrong ever. And so, like, let's do it. Let's take that, and make it so it is easier on ourselves. And so these transformations, these things that we want, if you want to feel aligned, if you want to know why you've been put on this earth, if you want to answer the question of who am I now, then we get to look at the foundation that God's created us with. We get to look at the way that our human, the way that our body was made, and we get to look at the environment. We get to look at the tools. We get to look at the gifts, the talents. We get to look at the extenuating circumstances that we've been through. We get to step back and see ourselves as a child of God, and not a mess, not a project, we all have strengths. There's things we can work on until our dying day, until the day we go up to heaven. Yes, there will be things that we have to work on. But again, there's things that we get to rest in, that we can get settled in, and our strengths, our gifts, our talents, our motivations, these are things that we can we figure them out, and we get to grow within them, and we get to pour into them, and we get to rest in the fact that these aren't going to go away, because they are innate to us. They are in our inner being. They are in our core, and they are the way that God's created us. And so many times we try to skip this side of not knowing us. Like we are like, we'll figure it out as we go. Well, I want you to think about that house. And if they would not have, like what a missed opportunity if they would have cleared out all that rock, instead of the architect saw that a beautiful stone staircase belongs in this house. What if they chipped away at that and then just put a wood staircase in that looks like every other staircase in our, flat houses? A missed opportunity. But because they knew that was one of the strengths of the house, and not only is it's foundational, and it builds stability, but it also adds an element of uniqueness and beauty. Well, that's what we discover when we see ourselves clearly. And so if you were interested in understanding this, and we talked last podcast about how to get a baseline, because it starts with giving ourselves some grace and seeing where we are. But then we get to see, okay, where do we want to go? And then we get to lean into the fact that it's already inside of us. We just get to discover it. We get to chip away, and we get to leave. I think it was okay, I'm going to, the sculpture of David, I think it was Michelangelo. I think. I'm probably wrong. Okay, I did not fact check this. I'm pretty sure it's Michelangelo, but I could be wrong. But anyway, the sculpture of David, they asked him, how do you know what you're going to make? And he's like, well, I just chip away whatever doesn't belong. Well, when we want to be our authentic self, we got to chip away what doesn't belong. We got to leave the things that are innate and that are our stability and that are our grounding and that are our foundation. And that's what this step does, is we get to chip away things that don't belong and reveal who God called us to be. And it's not as hard as it sounds. It actually is. The process of it is so life-giving and joyful. And it's not filled with judgment and guilt and shame. It's filled with grace and compassion and love, because you can be grateful for what got you to this point. And then you can be excited about what's coming next, because you get to design that. You get to see God's already planned it. We get to live into it. We get to be partners with him and go for it. And so if you want to make 2025, if you're like, okay, Tammy, I am done wanting more and wondering what my purpose is. And I want to know how he's wired me and what my impact, what my calling, this identity, I want to answer, who am I now? And you want to see, okay, what is my secret sauce? What do I want to be known for? What difference do I make? Get on a call with me. Let's chat, because this is what I love doing. This is what Align and Shine, that's my program that I am getting ready to launch. Again, I'm launching it in February. However, I have 5 spots for individuals who want to get a head start and want it in a little bit more of a intimate setting and want to help me craft it a little bit more and ask their questions. Because I know some of you ask such great questions and I'm like, I didn't think of it that way. Let me get back to you. Well, that's the information that I want. I want to know what you want to know, because I've been in this world for so long that sometimes I forget these questions and they're so fun to explore. If you're ready to align your life with who God called you to be and to shine your gifts and to shine in your confidence, then let's connect. Get on a free call. No obligation. Let's talk, see if it fits for you, if it works for you. See what your calling, your gifts are. And so you can live your purpose, not just discover it. So you can live and be your unique self, to dive into your zone of genius, your secret sauce, create the lasting impact and the lasting legacy that you're craving, and find that joy, the peace, and the fulfillment that God has waiting for you. So get on a call with me and let's chat. And if you have not left me a rating review for this podcast, I have audacious goals for this year. I have been ranked in the top 2% of globally for the last 3 years. By the time this comes, I'm almost at 4 years. And it was at the 1 year mark that I made the top 2% globally, which blows my mind. And I've been there and I'm like, okay. And God whispered, why aren't you going for 1%? And so I need your help. I need you to leave me a rating review. I need you to listen to the podcast. I need you to send it to a friend who also, has a calling on their life to shine. Because when we shine our light, it gives others permission to do the same. And so my podcast, this podcast that I'm so thankful for you as my listener. And I know that some of you have been here since the beginning, and I am so grateful. And let's see what we can do this year. Let's expand the reach, because when we're in this together, it's the burden's lighter. And so if you can leave me a rating review, and if you would send this to a friend who you know would benefit from this podcast, I would really appreciate it. And let's see if we can get to the top 1% this year. I know it's an audacious goal, and it's crazy because they don't even, the powers that be don't actually tell you what you need to do in order to get it. They kind of keep that close at hand because they don't want people to intentionally do the things that change the algorithm to where it's they get it. There's several metrics that they use, but really it's listener decided. It's through the listeners, it's through the ratings and reviews, it's how much do you listen, how long do you listen, all of that stuff. And so please, if you wouldn't mind sending this to 1 or 5, I'm not going to limit how many people you send it to, but if you can do that for me, I would really appreciate it. And friend, choose joy until joy chooses you, and I will see you again really soon. Bye for now.